Good morning, and I've got some bad news for all of you. Will Smith is not coming. This is as good as it's going to get for the next 35 minutes, okay? I will also share with you that when I get back to America, the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to fire everybody that works for me that has anything to do with press, media, or public relations. Because all week, as I've been here in Riyadh, people have been asking me all week, is this your first time being in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia? No. This is my second time being in Riyadh in the last 9 days. I've had the privilege and honor of visiting the beautiful Kingdom of Saudi Arabia numerous times.
I met my father for the first time when
2 weeks ago, I had the honor of speaking at the Misk Foundation. I have had the honor, actually, of speaking at the Misk Foundation 3 times in the last 5 years. I've had the honor of presenting 2 of the 3 books that I've written, which, by the way, have been published in Arabic at the Riyadh International Book Fair. Did I break the clicker, guys? Did I break this? I've also had the chance to spending some time at one of the world's most beautiful golf courses at King Abdullah Economic City.
Sit down.
Someone recently said to me in America, you spend so much time in Saudi Arabia, you should just buy a house there.
Okay, yeah.
Well, you
We
know
need another
what?
clicker.
When you go from living on the streets of San Francisco to living in the penthouse at Trump Tower in Chicago, you know it is possible. My time with you today will be entirely too brief. If this were the only time that I was going to get to speak with any of you, I would like to share a few thoughts on resilience, coming back, and how do we go forward. In preparing my remarks today with Reem's assistance, I kept asking myself, what would I want to hear today? What would I ask Chris Gardner if I had a chance? I would want to ask, is it possible? How do you come from a family of 400 years of slavery to 4 decades on Wall Street? How did you come from being a sharecropper to being a shareholder? I probably took too much of Reem's time asking the same questions over and over and over. I'm sure at one point she did say to herself, if I knew I was going to work this hard, I would have just done this talk myself. The reason I took so much of Reem's time asking pretty much the same questions was because I've got this thing about preparation. As many of you know, I've never went to college a day in my life. Some kind of a way I wound up on Wall Street in a business where I had to compete with people who went to Harvard for kindergarten. 4 decades on Wall Street. Till this day, I have to compete with people that are smarter than me. It happens every day. Till this day, I have to compete with people that are richer than me. It happens every day. Till this day, I have to compete with people who have better political connections from more influential families and better relationships. I have to compete with them every day, just like you. I've probably described everybody in this room. My point is, you're never going to be better prepared than me. You know why? Because we can control that. I am often asked, what is worse, never getting the opportunity or not being prepared when the opportunity presents itself? My answer will always be the same: not being prepared. Because we cannot control when, how, or if an opportunity presents itself, but we can control our level of preparation. The parts of my life that I'm going to share with you today all happened in America. But where they happened doesn't matter, because I believe that the most important, empowering, and challenging experiences in all of our lives are the universal experiences. The birth of a child, a graduation, a wedding, a new job or business opportunity, a new home, the loss of a loved one. Those are the universal experiences that create a family called humanity. And I will submit to you that during the most important, empowering, and challenging experiences in all of our lives, where you are on the planet is secondary to where you are in your spirit. Those experiences that I just referenced, they probably all feel the same whether you live in America, Africa, or Asia. They feel the same whether you live in Raleigh, Rio, or Riyadh. I cannot stand here today and proclaim that I know any or all of the secrets to success. My personal feelings and experience has been, there are no secrets. All that I hope to do today is to share with you some of the keys that I found along the way, which I believe to be universal. In order to give you some context for my content, I got to go back into my past a little bit. And if I do this right, many of us should feel that we have been in some of the same places and spaces. Clearly at different points in time, different cities, same circumstances. Different streets, same situations. The single most important decision that I ever made in my life, I made it as a 5-year-old boy. I, unfortunately, was one of those children who grew up without a father. And not just without a father, but with a stepfather who was fond of reminding me every day, I ain't your daddy. You ain't got no daddy. And when you grow up with that kind of thing, you can do one of two things. You can perpetuate it, or you can choose to go the other way. I chose because of a promise. I did not know what a commitment was as a 5-year-old boy, but I knew what a promise was. And I made a promise to myself as a 5-year-old boy that became the most important decision I ever made in my life. The promise was, when I grow up, become a man, and have children, my children are going to know who their father is. That promise that I made to myself as a 5-year-old boy didn't just change my life, that promise changed the lives of my yet to have been born children and my grandchild. That decision had nothing to do with becoming an entrepreneur, but had everything to do with becoming a man. That decision was not about what I'm going to be when I grow up, but who I was going to become. And that wasn't just a promise I made to myself. I had, in fact, just given myself permission to dream. And I'll come back to that concept in just a minute. And this right here, that's a photo of the actual washroom that my son and I, too many nights to had to call home because we had nowhere else to go. I go back to that train station every few years. It helps to keep me humble. Sometimes remembering where you're from can help you get to where you want to go. You'll notice that I'm standing in the doorway. I never close the door because I'm always afraid if I close the door, all of the ghost and pain in the walls will come out. It was right there in that washroom that I learned one of the most important keys to success, not just as an entrepreneur, but in life. And just a brief side note for any movie buffs in the house. In the film, Jaden Smith plays my son as a 5-year-old. In reality, at this point in our journey, my son was 14 months old. He was still in diapers. That changes everything. But every day in that washroom, I had to clean myself up, I had to wash my baby up, and I had to look in the mirror and ask myself some very hard questions every day. Questions like, why did this happen? Why did that happen? What's going to happen next? And the hardest question I had to ask and answer every day was, how did I get here? The answer was brutal. The answer was, I drove here. I had something to do with the circumstances or situations that had become my life. I drove here. But that was the key, because the second I said that, I knew if I drove here, then I can drive out of here. You can't change something until you own it. I drove here. Something else that came to mind as I was preparing my remarks and thoughts for you today was the importance of having a plan A. Not just a dream, not just a goal, not just an idea, but a plan A. I will submit to you that a dream without a plan A is worthless, but a dream with a plan A is priceless. I wrote a book about it. I put forth a concept, something that I call the C5 complex. And I will submit to you, your plan A must be clear, concise, compelling, consistent, and committed. I mentioned earlier that I live in Chicago. 3 people immediately come to mind when I think about folks who are committed to their plan A's. Anybody recognize that little boy? No? You know him now? That guy's got 6 NBA championship rings because he was committed to plan A, not plan B. This little girl, that little girl, she and I, by the way, same age, same zodiac sign, went to the same elementary school, went on to become the queen of all media because she was committed to plan A, not plan B. And whatever your politics are, that little boy served 2 terms as president of the United States because he was committed to plan A, not plan B. Somebody needs to write this down. No, somebody say this with me. Plan B sucks. Come on, say it like you mean it one time. Plan B sucks. Man, if plan B was any good, it'd be plan A. Plan B distracts from plan A. I've got to tell you, your crown prince here in the beautiful kingdom of Saudi Arabia, he has put forth a big, bold, beautiful, bodacious plan A called Vision 2030. So my question for a lot of you in this room right now, that's plan A. That's not plan B. My question for many of you in the room right now is, what is your plan A to fully participate in Vision 2030? You've got to know something. Everyone here in Saudi Arabia, you've got to know that the world is coming to Saudi Arabia. You've got to know that. So the big question is, what are you doing to get ready? That is the big question, because what was once impossible is now possible. I will submit to you, some of the best and brightest minds in the world are all coming to Saudi Arabia. And notice I did not say the best and brightest people. I said the best and brightest minds. And they are not coming here to participate in nation building. They're not coming here to participate in making the world a better place. They're coming here for the economic opportunities. They're coming here to make money. They are coming onto your field, your pitch, your court, your arena, into your business. So the big question is again, what are you doing to get ready? This is where my mom would say, boy, you can either be on the train or get left on the tracks. What you gonna do? Again, speaking to some of the young Saudi Arabians sitting in the room, I gotta tell you, some of you might be sitting out there knowing that you're going to get a seat at the table. You know you're going to get a seat at the table because of who your mother is, or who your father is, or how close your family is to the royal family. You might get a seat at the table, but the question is, will you be able to compete at that table? Are you prepared to sit at the head of that table? And the people that I'm most excited about here in Saudi Arabia right now are the people sitting out there right now saying, I do not want a seat at that table. I want to build my own table. Now that's what I'm talking about. Build my own table. I don't want to sit at your table. I'm often asked by people, do you believe in luck? No. The best luck I ever had, I made. The worst luck I ever had, I made. I got the best definition of luck from my godfather, Quincy Jones, who once said to me, you know what? Luck is the dust created when preparation and opportunity collide. That's your luck. If you believe in luck, go to Las Vegas. Let me know how that works out, okay? The thoughts that I shared earlier with you about being prepared, having a plan A, the C5 complex, and the importance of owning it are all directly related to this man. As a young man, I got the opportunity to hear Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. speak one night. As a matter of fact, it was the last speech he ever gave in his life. He was assassinated the very next day. He was speaking to a group of municipal employees, garbage men, down in Memphis, Tennessee. And his message to those men that night was, whatever you're going to do with your life, you should seek to become the best at it. I believe his exact words were, if you're going to be a garbage man, you should seek to become the best garbage man and sweep streets like Shakespeare wrote poetry. And right there, I made the second most important decision that I ever made in my life. That decision was, I was going to become world class at whatever I did with my life. Not good at it, not pretty good at it, but world class at it. And let's define world class and keep it simple. Someplace right now in your business, I guarantee you, there's a conversation going on and the question has come up, who's the best in the business? Somebody ought to say your name. Same conversation, same question. Who's the best in the business? If nobody says your name, then you've got work to do. Same conversation, same question. Who's the best in the business? If nobody says your name and you don't care, get out of the business. You'll never be any good. But the ultimate validation in that scenario, when that question comes up of who's the best in the business, the ultimate validation is when someone who does not like you says your name. When the folks who will not take your phone calls are now hoping that you'll return their calls. When the people who will not hire you yesterday cannot afford you today. That's when you'll know. You know when I knew? I don't, but I'm working on it every single day. I am grinding every single day. I don't spend a lot of time on social media, but I did see this one piece that puts into perspective, this is what world class could look like. Whatever your trade, craft, job, or position is, this is what world class could look like. Check this out. man. That's what world class could look like. And I've got to tell you something. Every time I see that clip, I keep waiting for the helicopter pilot to miss that shot. He makes it every single time. Out of curiosity, I do some additional research and I find out the helicopter pilot, that was not a he. That was a she. That's what world class could look like. I'm often asked by young people, have you ever failed at something, business or personal? Absolutely. Even when you are world class at something, sometimes you are going to fail. We've all heard it said, those who haven't failed haven't tried. We're all going to fail at something personal. Something I failed at? Marriage. I tried it twice. And I got to tell you, I failed so bad that last time. I ain't going to never try that again, okay? Thomas Edison, one of the 20th century's greatest inventors, once said he did not fail, he just found 10,000 ways that would not work. Failure can be your best teacher. The key is to forget the failure, but remember the lesson. It's okay to fail, but it is not okay to quit. I once met this guy, depicted in the film, driving that gorgeous red Ferrari, and I went up to him and I said, I got to ask you 2 questions. The 2 questions were, what do you do and how do you do that? Those 2 questions helped change the trajectory of my life. But there's a new 2 questions. And I'm going to give all of you some homework, especially, again, young people here in the beautiful kingdom of Saudi Arabia. I'm going to give you some homework. I want you to go home and brush your teeth. And every time you're looking in that mirror, I want you to ask that person the new 2 questions. Number 1, if I could walk through a door tomorrow morning and be doing anything in the world, what would it be? What would it look like? What would it smell like? What would it taste like? Engage all of your senses. And then ask yourself the second question. What did I do today to make tomorrow happen? What did I do today to make tomorrow happen? Those are the new 2 questions. And you got to remember this. While you're doing this exercise, you got to remember the person that you see in the mirror, they heard everything that you said and they saw everything that you did. And while you're doing this, again, I want some of you in here, and you'll know who it is that needs to do it. I want you to grab your cell phone and let's start a countdown. Set the date for January 1, 2030. Now, in my head, if I did it right, that should be 2,220 days from now. That should be 53,280 hours from now. And when that countdown starts, I want you to look at your personal game plan, your plan A, every day, and ask yourself, what did I do today with my time? What did I do today consistent with my plan A to prepare for Vision 2030? Who did I spend my time with? What did I spend my time on? And you got to know this as you're doing this. Time is the ultimate asset. You can make money, you can lose money, but you cannot make time. I'm often asked, well, what's important to you now? I'll tell you, the most important thing in the world to me right now is the opportunity to spend time with young people and young entrepreneurs globally. In the last 5 years, I've been able to speak at over 500 schools all around the world, 3 continents. And this part of my life is about fulfilling my generational responsibility. I'll come back to that concept in a moment. But a few years ago, I took my newest job. It's the last job I will ever have in my life. Now, why does this guy follow me around? Everywhere I go, this guy pops up. I got a couple questions I'd like to ask him right now. But I've taken the newest job, last job I'm ever going to have. I am now officially the CEO of happiness. And I love my job. Job one as CEO of happiness, I've got to explain to everybody all around the world, why do you insist on spelling happiness with a Y? That Y is there to make us all mindful that it is you and your responsibility, you and your opportunity to create the life that you want for you and your family. I am often asked, well, what are you going to do with the rest of your life? Simple. I'm going to help create the next Chris Gardners. What does that mean? That means if a young man walks up to me and says, I want to become a billionaire, I've got to say, I've never done that. I can't help you with that. If a young woman comes up to me and says, I want to become the CEO of a major Fortune 500 company, I've got to say, I've never done that. I can't help you with that. But when a young person comes up to me and says, I want to do something that I love, I'm committed to becoming world-class at it, and I want to work for myself, to that young person I could say, I've done that. I can help you with that. And when I say I'm going to help create the next Chris Gardners, some of them are going to be girls. I'm often challenged by adults who ask, what are the odds of you or Oprah ever happening again? I don't know. Because when you focus on the giving yourself permission to dream, you don't focus on the odds, you focus on the evens. As in, even though, even if, even when, even where, even you, even me. Because when you change the narrative, you can change the outcome. I mentioned earlier, fulfilling my generational responsibility. I'll never forget my last conversation with my dear friend and my hero, Mr. Nelson Mandela, who explained to me that perhaps your life has been what it has been in order to prepare you to fulfill your generational responsibility. His exact words to me were that every generation has the responsibility to see to it that the people coming behind them are prepared to reach a little bit higher and take it a little bit further. His exact words to me were that many of us who are riding on the roads of people who paved the roads with their blood, sweat, and tears. The folks that came before us need to be honored and acknowledged, and it's part of our generational responsibility to do so. Which brings me up to where we are with my family right now. That's the center of my world, right there. That's my granddaughter. And I don't know if you can see in that picture, see all the little red stuff all over the table there? I had just given that little girl her first piece of watermelon. And she's got this look on her face like she just loves me. That is my baby. At 15 years of age, she is already the finest piece of work in the history of my family. The one thing I've got to prepare myself for in about 6 months, I'm going to have to look up at her. She is 6 feet 2 inches tall at 15 years of age. And for her, most importantly, there are no more first. For her, there's only now and next. And I've got to share one last thought with you. I mentioned earlier this whole idea of having a plan A. You've got to own it, becoming world class at it, being prepared, failure, learning from failure. The new 2 questions. Before you can activate and blend any of those ideas or concepts, the first thing you've got to do is you've got to give yourself permission to dream. And I cannot talk about permission to dream without talking about her. That is my mother. And the last idea I would like to share with all of you, especially any young women here in Saudi Arabia, is that this woman right here, this African American woman, could have been your mother, your grandmother, great-grandmother. This woman, from a people who for 400 years in America could only do one thing, she gave herself permission to dream. And you know what her dream was? Her dream was she would be the last person in the history of her family to ever pick cotton. As a matter of fact, the last time she walked out of the cotton fields of Louisiana, she was pregnant with me, and she said to herself, "My son will never pick cotton." She had given herself permission to dream. And in closing, I've got to share this with you. There was a scene in the film that captures everything I've just tried to share with you. I don't know if you recall it, but it took place on the basketball court. In this movie, this particular scene, our screenwriter had a very dark view of the world. And when the little boy throws up the ball and says, "I'm going pro," the father says, "Forget it. That will never happen. I was no good at it, so that means that you can't do it." I waited until we were going to film that scene that day, and I went up to Will Smith and I said, "You can't tell that to that little boy, because that's not what my mother told me." We had a very heated discussion about it. Me, Will Smith, Gabriel Muccino, and one of the producers. The producer's position was, the father's got to keep it real with the kid. My position was, man, you live in Hollywood. What you know about keeping it real? We argued for 30 minutes, and finally, it was Will Smith who says, "You know what? Chris is right, because my mother told me the same thing." We tore up the original screenplay, and this was the result.
Hey. Don't ever let somebody tell you you can't do something. Not even me. All right?
All right.
You got a dream, you got to protect it. People can't do something themselves. They want to tell you you can't do it. You want something, go get it. Period. Let's go.
And those would be my closing words to all of you. If you want something, go get it. I cannot thank you enough for having me here. I have been absolutely honored, and inshallah, I will see you again. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Mr. Chris Gardner, everybody, and please don't leave the stage because we have a token of appreciation as well. Can I please invite Your Excellency the Vice Minister, Engineer Al-Hamad, and Mr. Al-Harbi to come up, because I know you've got something you'd like to give to Chris. That was wonderful. Thank you so much.